Mud, mud, glorious mud, and unless you're a wildfowler with webbed feet, quiet in the cheap seats, it can be the treacherous barrier between you and your birds. But where there's a wildfowler, there's a way. In fact, there's been a way for years. These are images from a book published in 1830, and the ones Nick makes look exactly the same.
Mud walking, it's as old as the hills. It's something that people have been doing in this particular neck of the woods because, as you see, there's an awful lot of mud. As far as I can research back, certainly as far as the 1600s, and because it's not rocket science, then probably for millennia before that. The thing, if you like, that I'm quite proud of having salvaged from the dustbin of history is the actual method of tying the mud patterns on. Again, it really isn't rocket science, but if you look through the literature of wildfowling, which is particularly rich, and a number of celebrated authors cover mud patterns, it's quite obvious that when you do understand how they work and how to tie them on, it's very obvious that those people didn't. They were aware of the broad concept of how mud patterns work, but had probably never used them themselves. Standard working mud pattern, roughly 12-inch square. None of the dimensions are intrinsically important, but it's got a batten on either side and a batten in the middle, if you can imagine turning it over to stop it slipping and sliding sideways. You've got these two loops, which is what the rope is secured to, and the ropes themselves are fastened underneath with a figure of 8 or stopper knot. If ever you make yourself a pair of mud patterns, for goodness sake, avoid using a simple overhand knot. It must be this particular knot so that it doesn't pull through, because when you put the mud patterns on your feet and you tighten the rope up, the stresses that you are imparting to the rope are significant, and you need to make sure that you've used the correct knot, otherwise it will simply pull through.
To see the benefits of the mud pattern plate, we're asking Nick to race Matt, who is half his age, across the mudflats. It's not deep here, but it will slow you down.
I've got a pretty strong idea that he's going to be floundering along, getting seriously overheated and plastered in mud long before I do.
The sun's up to the middle of the sky, and I'm wearing 5mm neoprene waders with a boot that's as hot as, I don't know, the deepest, darkest depths of hell, it feels like at the minute. So it's going to be good fun. It's going to be good fun. Ready, steady, go.
Nick, the human mudskipper, cruises effortlessly across this tricky environment.
But I think if nothing else, you can see that whilst Matt is young and fit and was making steady progress, as I said before, I'm 61 and old and decrepit, and I was not literally walking rings round him, but I've come ashore feeling as fit as a fiddle.
Just like Inuits have hundreds of words for snow, wildfowlers have 2 for mud, maybe 4, and they know what to avoid.
When I look at mud, the way I see it is green is good and brown is down, and that's kind of a great stick to work to, I think. Why is that? Because if brown is down, you end up stuck. So yeah, that's why.
We were hoping for something a little more in depth. Come on, Nick.
That was rubbish. Can I have a better one, please?
Yeah, I suppose the technical answer to that is that the green weeds that you can see behind us, either the entramorph or the slobweed, which is the stuff that we've been walking on, or further out the widgeon grass, the zostra, it likes mud of a particular consistency to grow in. If it's too slack, it gets washed away. So the brown areas with no weed on them are almost invariably loose, and you've got that visual clue to avoid it if it's humanly possible.
A few dirty secrets there. Brown is down for one. Kids, do try this at home, but not out in an estuary unless you're with someone experienced. If you fancy buying a set of mud patterns, drop Nick a line. He only makes a few a year, so be quick. mudpattern@gmail.com